Hey guys, Theron Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing you another exciting podcast. Tonight we have Mr. Mitch Pare. He won the BFL event last year on Lake Hartwell in the South Carolina division, so we're very, very excited to have the previous champion from last year to talk to us about the event coming up this year. And we're going to bring him in just a minute. Real quick, we just want to say thank you to all of our subscribers on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video. That way you get notified when all of our content is being dropped. And we have a lot of content coming in the very near future, talking to all these wonderful BFL anglers. Revital Outdoors, once again, is a sponsor of the Major League Fishing BFL League, and we are super excited to be a part of that. Revital Outdoors, premium CBD company, great for all avid outdoor enthusiasts like ourselves, hunting and fishing. Great for inflammation relief, anxiety relief, aches and sorenesses in your back and your joints, helps you sleep better at night. THC free, made right here in America. Check us out, revitaloutdoors.com. Also, check out our social media accounts, which are Facebook and Instagram. A lot of great content on there as well. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Mitch Pare, how you doing this evening, bud?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, thanks for taking the opportunity to talk to us. And first and foremost, congratulations on your victory last year at Lake Hartwell.
Thank you. It was a fun tournament. It was my first year fishing as a boater. I wasn't sure how I was going to end up doing. I'd done all right fishing as a co-angler, and I was just a little bit nervous stepping it up, being at the front of the boat.
Absolutely, that's to be expected. But you came out swinging, and you had a really great first tournament. So that's always awesome. It's always great to see guys go from that co-angler to a boater position. Hopefully, I get that opportunity someday, and hopefully, I can follow in your footsteps and win the first one. That'd be awesome. So for sure. So we'll talk to us about last year. I know you are very, very good on Lake Hartwell. You got a lot of great history. I was looking at your profile on Major League Fishing, so that's cool. Talk to us about the tournament. Did you practice, and what did you end up finding the winning fish were doing, and what were just some of the keys to your success?
I went about a week before the tournament, and the weekend before pre-fished, and I had found some fish kind of towards the back of a creek. I like to fish shallow anyway, and I'm not as good as a lot of the guys are offshore. I don't have live scope or anything like that, so I probably get my tail kicked out there, but I was able to go. I like fishing a little bit stained water, so I ventured towards the back of the creeks and was able to find some up on some riprap and some willow trees and stuff like that. And there was a bunch of fish back there, and I caught about 14 pounds in practice, which I didn't think was very good. I mean, I thought it was an all right bag, but I talked to a couple guys up there, and they said it's been really tough up there, and that would probably be winning a tournament right around then. So I was like, man. So I didn't expect the fish to be there by the time the tournament rolled around the following week. But I got back there in the morning, and the shad were spawning all over the riprap, and I think I had a limit within the first hour or so of the day, and then I know my two big ones right back to back, 5 minutes apart, and it was like 9 o'clock. And I ended up deciding right then I was just going to stay back there all day and try to hit one more big one, because I thought I was going to need one more 4 or 5 pounder to have a chance to win. But I ended up luckily having enough to do it anyway. But if there was a herring spawn bite going on out on the main lake, I probably wouldn't have won that. But there was 2 other big tournaments going on, and a lot of guys on the water, and I think that pressure out there had a lot to do with that.
Okay. So let's take a step backwards a little bit. 10 years ago, Lake Hartwell again. Jason Christie out of Oklahoma, he wins the FLW Tour event on Lake Hartwell, fishing shallow, kind of like what you're talking about, pre-spawn pattern. What were the fish that you were catching kind of doing the same thing, up in kind of the shallower areas, dirtier water with a spinnerbait, or how was it, what kind of were you keying in on?
I had caught, I think all of my fish probably come with about, I probably had 2 foot of water underneath my trolling motor. So, I mean, not much. I was throwing a bladed jig and flipping jig pretty much all day. I did call one out right towards the end of the day, fishing a Senko on a dock, and it really upgraded me like 2 ounces, but I was happy to have that anyway. And I found a bunch of fish on docks actually on that tournament that I was going to use kind of as a backup if those fish weren't back there. Something else I could go run. There was a lot of smaller fish, but I knew I could at least get a limit doing that.
Okay. Okay. Now, just out of curiosity, how many keepers did you catch last year?
I probably between 15 and 20. I had caught a lot of smaller fish towards the end of the day when I went and was heading back towards the ramp, hitting docks, and there were a lot of smaller spotted bass, but I think I weighed in 4 largemouth in one spot, and that spot was the last one I caught that I called out one of the smaller largemouth, but just a lot of 12, 13 inchers. So those two,
Okay.
and I really didn't have much to go. I had a 412 or a 414 or 412, something like that. I think it was 414, big fish, and I think I had a 412. So if I didn't have much to go with those, I think I had 15, 3/4, close to 16 pounds. So
Catching all largemouth, I assume.
yeah, in the back, kind of in the back in the dirtier water, it was all largemouth back there, and that's what I was looking for. Because I know like Clark Hill, you've got to have largemouth. I fish Clark Hill actually more than I do Hartwell, and
Really?
Clark Hill, there's nothing but small spots in there, and I know if you can't win a tournament on spots. Hartwell, I know you can, but I don't feel as comfortable doing it. I like fishing shallow and power fishing. Actually, I moved down here originally from Michigan, so I grew up smallmouth fishing, super deep, clear water, and kind of had to relearn how to fish when I got down here. And I lived down by Savannah and fished the Savannah River a good bit, which is cypress trees and willows and everything else. So I had a lot of pitching and frogs and top water stuff like that. And that's what I love doing. And so I kind of stuck to that all year and
Good for
follow
you.
that
Good
through
for you.
about every tournament.
Yeah, well, sounds like you had a lot of confidence, and that's what you ran with. So that's really cool. Talking about what you just did, it seems notorious on the lakes that have a good population of spotted bass and largemouth. And when I say, a lake that has that, I'm talking about Lake Hartwell, Table Rock, Lanier, even Lake Washita, Lake Hamilton in Arkansas, Lake Ten Killer over in Oklahoma. It seems like if you want to do well at those tournaments, yes, you can have a mixed bag, but you better have some stealthy largemouth in your bag if you're going to win.
Yeah, you've got to at least have one good largemouth in there if you're going to even have a chance. And like I said, even having close to 16 pounds, I figured it was going to take 18, 19 to win that. I figured the herring spawn was going to be on fire. I mean, that was about prime time. It was the end of April when that tournament was on, and which should have been just prime herring spawn. But I think the pressure got to them and really kind of shut everything off. So
Right.
that was probably why I won that tournament, was the tournaments that were happening, because I know there was, I think, two other tournaments going on that were 200 boat tournaments that day.
Right. So, well, talk to us a little bit. You mentioned bait selection. Was there anything else that you kind of found in practice, or did you have just 2 rods on the deck when you left that morning for the tournament?
I had a frog. I did kind of find something later. I had caught a couple on a frog in practice, and the bite wasn't that good. I did pick it up later in the day. I did lose one big fish also that day on a frog, and I caught a couple on it. And I wish I kind of would have ran that a little longer than what I did, because I think I probably could have upgraded back in there. But it was kind of towards the end of the day when I found that, and I wish I would have explored that a little bit more than I did. But it was, I had a frog, chatterbait, a jig, and a Senko was what I was doing. The Senko, the only place I was really throwing that was just on some docks, around some docks, closer out to where the ramp was at.
There's something about that Cinco, that wacky worm on Lake Hartwell. We saw Brent Naylor. He won the tournament in 2013 FLW Tour. He caught a couple fish every day on a wacky worm. We saw John Cox win the tournament there in 2016. He was throwing a wacky worm in the docks. We saw in 2018 Jordan Lee. He won the Bassmaster Classic on Hartwell, throwing a wacky worm.
Yep.
What is it about that lake and a wacky worm? And it's like it's year round.
It gets bit, and I kind of found a way. I was fishing a smaller jig actually on the docks when I started, and I remember I pulled into this one little pocket, and I could see just 2 massive fish sitting really high up on a deeper dock. And I had thrown that jig for a good part of that day of practice and never even got a bite. And as soon as I realized that they were maybe suspended up underneath those floats, I just tied on a Wacky Senko and just started getting bit immediately. And I could go. There was one pocket I was in, I could get bit on every dock, and probably could have caught multiple fish on there in practice. I shake everything off in practice. I never set the hook, and that's I think a big part of it too. Like if I'm fishing a couple days before, if I'm there a week before, kind of looking, like I was looking for largemouth when I was pre-fishing the week before, so I would catch those fish. I mean, so much changes in a week that, that week probably ain't gonna matter. But yeah, I mean, that's a big part too. I think, shaking fish off in practice. That's I think that makes a big difference. I think a lot of guys mess up doing that, sticking them, and then they go back. Stick a good tag the day before, and then go back there and try to catch them. And it's like, man, I was on 19 pounds yesterday. Yeah, you were.
I had a college partner that was famous for that. Dude, we caught like 80 fish here this week. What happened? Oh, well, I don't know.
And especially when you get back into that shallower water stuff further back in the creeks, and that's where it gets, I think, even more important to shake those fish off. If you're throwing a jig too, a lot of times you throw a chatterbait, you'll get a look at them, so you can kind of tell how big they are then. And if you get one eat a big jig, it's going to be a lot of times a good fish, and you can usually tell.
Yeah, you're not, in my opinion, on that lake this time of year, any lake this time of year, even down here to Lake Okeechobee, guys catch their limit and they put on a big 1 ounce jig and go to flipping because you're not going to get a lot of bites. But when you swing on one, it's going to be a funky.
Yep, and that's one thing that I don't normally do. I don't normally catch a ton of fish, and I think in a one-day tournament like that, you can go win in the back of a creek, and I think that's probably your best shot at doing it, is kind of fishing some of that backwater stuff, unless you really know a lake. And I got a buddy of mine that Chris Chavis, who's awesome fishing on the herring lakes, and you go hit them cane piles, and you know what you're doing out there, you can get right in a hurry. I just don't have any confidence doing it, and I'm really bad at managing time when I do that. So that's kind of why I stay in the backs. And,
right. So, looking forward to this tournament this year, Mitch. What do you think an angler is going to have to do to win? What kind of weight do you anticipate that is going to be there this year to win? What's the lake doing, different from last year? Just kind of give us your thoughts for this year's tournament 2022 for the BFL South Carolina division on Lake Hartwell.
The South Carolina division coming up here, a lot of it's going to be dependent on, I think, weather. And rain, I think, is going to play a big part of it too. I think if we get a few warm days before that tournament, I think them fish will really get fired up. They're going to be right on the edge, I think, of really wanting to get up shallow and really start moving up. And if that happens, I think you can see it'll probably be somebody getting, like I said, up one of the rivers and running into some big fish back there. It stays colder. That bite. You'll still be able to find them back there, but it may not be as good. It won't be as good as it could be. But your main lake fish, I think, are going to still be in that winter pattern and probably catching them deeper. And if you know the lake real well and you can get on some brush piles and do that, you can definitely win the tournament doing that also. If it were me, I'd pretty much live and die up one of the rivers somewhere in one of the cuts looking for some shallow water.
And it pays off. So let's say an angler wants to go out. He's got 3 rods on the deck. He anticipates him winning the tournament with those 3 rods. What's he got?
I'd have a jig for sure. I've always got a jig on it. That's tough. I would say a jig, a square bill, and probably a chatterbait. A chatterbait's hard to beat. I pretty much got a jig and a chatterbait tied on almost all the time. And probably a Senko to follow up maybe behind him if I get one to hit and miss.
Okay. Well, cool. So, Mitch, it's been an honor having you on our podcast. We appreciate you taking the time this evening to join us and talk about your win last year in the BFL South Carolina division on Lake Hartwell. Anybody you would like to thank, now's the time for you to just kind of talk about your career. Anybody you want to thank, sponsor-wise, family-wise, now's the time for you to do so.
Obviously, like I said, I've got 5 kids, so my wife has to deal with that all by herself when I'm away for the weekend doing one of these tournaments. So I got to thank her. And then as far as sponsors go, man, I've keep it pretty simple. I've got a Dobbins rods help me out a little bit, and I've been with them for about 6 years now, and I haven't really explored much besides, as far as bait companies or anything like that. I'm pretty busy most of the time, and so fishing takes up the rest of it in my free time. So I don't really have a ton of time to do much else. And I tried to get a sponsor. I'd like to fish Toyota Series eventually, and I'd like to one day try to find something I can get worked out to help with some entry fees on that. But until then, I'm just going to enjoy fishing the BFLs and having fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, well, Mitch, it was an honor having you on our podcast. We appreciate you taking the time to do so. And we wish you all the best of luck this year. And, man, this is a pre-tournament podcast into Lake Hartwell for this year. We're also doing the post-tournament podcast. So if we have you back on with Revital Outdoors, which we hope we do, I think we will, that means you're having a great year in 2022.
Sounds good, man. Anytime.
I appreciate it. So from all of us at Revital Outdoors, I'm Theron Asbury. Thank you for tuning in to another podcast. Be sure, again, you subscribe to our YouTube page. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. We wish Mitch a really successful 2022. For all of us at Revital Outdoors, thank you for tuning in. We will talk to you soon. Have a good night.